Hello, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Tuesday, our Tech Tuesday evening, where we dive a little bit deeper into all the fun and games that go with nutrition. Nutrition is one of those words that we use so glibly that, you know, have you had your nutrition today? But we don't always know what that actually means. When do we take things? Is it like medication? What works with each other, what doesn't work with each other. And we've been covering that over the last couple of weeks. So a little bit of when to take nutritional supplements, how to take nutritional supplements, with meals, without meals. And now we're going through the bits and pieces as to what works together and what fights with each other. Like a lot of things, you already heard about oil and water. Oil and water don't mix. Well, some supplements don't mix either. So you got to take them at different times. So please feel free to go back to the previous recordings. For new people who are watching this for the first time, if you hit subscribe, you will get notified every time that we publish or upload an event like this. So you will have it automatically on your system. But it'd be great if there are any people who are watching this and would like to join us. Please just contact me, message me or whatever, and I'll send you the link and you can join us live if you would like to do that. But let me share my screen and get going with tonight's section. Need to hide all the bits and pieces that don't need to be there, including me. Okay, so we've been talking about when and how to take supplements, even though it's not medicine. Now, the first couple of parts of this little series took from some medical websites, and the parts that I'm covering at the moment, which is your synergies and antagonism, I've borrowed from Dr. Jim McAfee, who is a highly qualified, well-experienced clinical nutritionist, and you can find the information on his website at www.imageawareness.com. So I'll just quickly reach back to where I ended off last week, and we're talking about the specificity of action. So what that means is, how do certain vitamins and minerals work? And it refers to the fact that different forms of nutrients and different nutrients perform different functions in the body. For example, we tend to think of fiber as a single entity. You talk about fiber, but fiber is not just fiber. We know that pectins detoxify the digestive tract. Soluble fibers function to regulate blood sugar. Insoluble fibers are best for bulking up the stool and preventing constipation and the disorders associated with that. Because if you've ever been constipated, you know that life tends to get very uncomfortable because basically your stool is made up of all the toxins that your body doesn't need or doesn't want and needs to get out of it. And if it's not getting ejected from the body, those toxins are building up in your system and causing problems. Carotenoids provide an excellent illustration of specificity of action. In one study, alpha-carotene was found to be 10 times more effective than beta-carotene in the inhibition of cancer growth. Lutein and zeaxanthin provide very specific protection for the macular lutea in the eye, preventing macular degeneration. Lycopene provides very specific protection against prostate cancer, not offered by other carotenoids. Even tiny changes in the structure of how a molecule is put together can alter the way that that molecule functions in the human body. When vitamins are synthesized, one will often get a mirror image of a natural molecule. Sometimes there are many different forms, known as stereoisomers, of a vitamin. For example, there are 272 stereoisomers of beta-carotene alone. Can you see how complex nature actually is? And when supplement manufacturers come along and they say, oh, we're going to sell you beta carotene because that's all you need. And we made it in a lab. Have they been able to get all 272 of those stereoisomers in beta carotene in a synthetic form? Probably not. The synthetic product consists of totally different stereoisomers that does than what you find in the natural product, because science always takes the line of least resistance. Now, according to the New England Journal of Medicine, how a particular beta carotene came to be selected for worldwide testing is neither hard to understand nor easy to forgive. Synthetic beta carotene does not appear to prevent cancer and may increase it, while the natural forms of carotenoids found in foods are strongly associated with decreased risk of development of cancer and a number of other diseases. And they discovered that because they did a series of tests on some men on prostate cancer using synthetic beta carotene. And they, in fact, stopped the study midway through because they found that these guys, their cancer counts had increased dramatically. Then they just simply turned around and said, oh, beta carotene doesn't work, because they were using a fake version of it. So synthetic and natural, there are differences. Vitamin E provides us an example of the dramatic difference a slight change in the structure of a molecule can make. Synthetic vitamin E is made from isophytol, which is a petroleum or turpentine product. If anybody asks you, crude oil, it's natural, isn't it? So therefore, natural vitamin E derived from petroleum is natural, isn't it? Would you like a liter of fuel in your system? And it consists of molecules which, when in solution, rotate polarized light to the left, which is an L structure, and molecules which rotate light to the right is a D structure. Only the D form is natural for vitamin E, hence the D and the DL. My definition of that little L means leave it on the shelf. Studies have shown that the natural form of vitamin E is 50% more effective than synthetic vitamin E. Researchers discovered that the placental cords of pregnant women had 3.5 times more natural vitamin E than the synthetic. The body was selectively targeting the natural molecule for the infant. Nature always wants the best. Have you ever been part of a bucket brigade where there's a fire, there's no hoses because for whatever reason your water supply isn't working through a hose pipe? So you get a group of people with a bucket. One stands at the pond on one side and scoops at the bucket, and they rapidly pass the bucket down to the guy at the end who throws it on the flames and passes the empty bucket back to be refilled. And that's how a bucket brigade works. Ye olde fire brigade. The interaction of antioxidants of various types is quite complex, as they do their work of preventing damage from free radicals, which are nature's hand grenades. Science News summarized their function as follows. The scheme the chemists propose works something like a bucket brigade, with the dangerous chemical property being passed from one molecule to the next. First, vitamin E reacts with the free radicals, restoring them to their less harmful state. This reaction, however, turns vitamin E into a potentially damaging free radical, which the carotenoids then inactivate. Finally, vitamin C repairs the resulting carotenoid radicals, and the water-soluble vitamin C radicals eventually wash out of the body. Another illustration is a relay race. If you ever watched a relay race, it's quite fascinating, specifically if the guys are working together as a really good team. The baton would represent the free radical being passed from one antioxidant to another. So adequacy And this means obtaining a broad spectrum of antioxidants is important for optimal protection of the body from free radical damage. So we've just seen it's not just a single item that's going to do the job. It's a whole lot of different items. Imagine taking a single bucket and running backwards and forwards yourself, trying to put out a fire. It's not going to be that effective. Equally important is adequate intake of the protective factors. It would be like a fireman running into a burning building with a hose, but he's not wearing fireproof garments. It's not really going to do the job properly. The complicated synergisms evident in the nutritional world should underline the importance of completeness and balance of nutritional intake. And this is why having an isolate supplement is never a good idea. Major gaps can result in failure of function of essential nutrients. Even seemingly inconsequential aspects of foods may later prove to be highly significant. Have you ever had a meal with no salt in it? Just a little bit of salt makes all the difference between nothing and a decent taste coming out of it. It was not so very long ago that flavonoids were considered an unnecessary and inconsequential component of the vitamin C complex. After all, we talk about vitamin C. And that cheap synthetic vitamin C ascorbic acid that you get in the shops should be perfectly adequate, shouldn't it? Well, maybe not really. Today, volumes have been written on the nutritional significance of these potent antioxidants and the protection they provide to cells and tissues. In the realm of the antioxidants, completeness of intake provides far better protection from the ravages of aging than will an erratic and incomplete intake of nutrients. It is a failure of understanding of these complex interrelationships which leads to the addition of 1 or 2 carotenoids or flavonoids to a nutritional formula. Bottom line, give your body all the tools it needs, and it will pick and choose the correct recipe that it needs. Because if you take eggs, and I'm not that good a baker, but you take eggs and flour and water as raw ingredients, you can probably make anything from a cake to bread. Don't shoot me because I'm not a chef, but those are 3 basic ingredients. It's how you mix them that determines the end result. Now, vitamin-mineral antagonism. A high vitamin C intake can deplete copper and increase retention of iron. Excess vitamin D intake will cause an increased absorption of calcium, but can also cause a potassium deficiency. Too much copper will increase your requirements for vitamin C and niacin, or vitamin B3. And vitamin antagonism, vitamin E provides a case study in the importance of balance. In nature, vitamin E is a fat-soluble antioxidant. Pardon me. It is usually found as a family of 8 different compounds, namely alpha, beta, gamma, and delta tocopherols, and alpha, beta, gamma, and delta tocotrienols. These members of the vitamin E family are also accompanied by high-quality fats as found in wheat germ oil. Despite the fact that this complex of substances is found together, research has traditionally focused on only one member of the complex, namely alpha tocopherol, which is why if you're looking at a label, it'll always tell you how much alpha tocopherol there is in the product. Usually, if it's a synthetic one, it'll say X amount of DL alpha tocopherol. If it's a genuine food product, a whole food version, it will say D alpha tocopherol, X amount. They don't always list all the other bits probably because of lack of space on a label. Lester Packer argued for the necessity for careful discrimination among the various forms of vitamin E. And Lester Packer is considered the world expert. Well, he was, because he's no more as far as I know. But he was considered the world's expert on vitamin E because he was the guy that formulated our vitamin E, but also carried on. And in fact, he's got a research lab that continues to this day ongoing research on vitamin E as well as other antioxidants. So he would be the one to go to for this sort of information. Packer found in his laboratory work that alpha tocotrienol, not alpha tocopherol, but alpha tocotrienol, had 40 to 60 times the antioxidant potency of alpha tocopherol. So if you had a choice between the tocopherol or the tocotrienol, which one would you take? This means that an experiment with one form of vitamin E could have dramatically different results than an experiment with a different form of vitamin E. Stefan Christen found that unbalanced vitamin E supplementation was undesirable and could be dangerous. Large amounts of alpha tocopherol appear to push gamma tocopherol out of the body. Gamma tocopherol proved to be important in inactivating nitrogen oxides, which triggers some of the damage caused by inflammation and also damage your DNA. Even if vitamin E is natural, it will not provide the optimal benefit unless it contains both alpha and gamma tocopherol. And this is according to Dr. Stefan Christen. Almost all vitamin E supplementation for decades has consisted of only one member of the vitamin E family, namely alpha tocopherol. It is the cheapest and most easily obtained source of vitamin E, hence the reason for the use. Stefan wrote, because large doses of dietary alpha tocopherol displace gamma tocopherol in plasma and other tissues, the current wisdom of vitamin E supplementation with primarily alpha tocopherol should be reconsidered. Vitamin E illustrates two important aspects of the functioning of nutrient complexes. The first is the specificity of action. Alpha tocopherol simply cannot do what gamma tocopherol does, and vice versa. There is a basic synergism between the members of the vitamin E family in that they all perform the work of antioxidants, but in different parts of the body. And as we've been taught in our Big Book of Instruction, each part of the body has a separate use. The eye can't smell. The nose can't see. The ear can't taste. Exactly the same as antioxidants. They also help the body cope with different kinds of free radicals. The second principle is competitive absorption, or the antagonistic action of certain nutrients. Huge intakes of isolated alpha tocopherol will depress levels of gamma tocopherol. This aspect of nutrition is little studied and little understood, but it is nevertheless very real and capable of demonstration with regard to a wide variety of nutrients. Sadly, nutritional clinical studies are relatively few and far between. They're expensive. You can't patent them, and therefore you can't make exorbitant amounts of money out of them like you can from wholly synthetic and lab mixed and manufactured products. There are some indications of competitive absorption of carotenoids as well. This is significant in view of the remarkable specificity of action of the different carotenoids. Few carotenoid supplements provide a well-balanced intake as found in a variety of foods one would normally consume. I won't say no carotenoid supplements, but very, very few. Now we come to another big word called stereoisomers. And when vitamins are synthesized, one will often get a mirror image of a natural molecule. Sometimes there are many different forms, also called stereoisomers, of a vitamin. For example, as we said earlier, there are 272 stereoisomers in three-dimensional arrangements of beta-carotene alone. The synthetic product consists of totally different stereoisomers than does the natural product. Looks like I've got a duplication of nerve here. Oops, sorry, looks like I've got a duplicate over here. The next one we'll talk about is the mineral-mineral antagonism. An illustration of this competitive aspect of nutrients is the relationship between calcium and magnesium. According to Dr. Mildred Seelig, one of the world's leading experts on magnesium, she felt the ideal relationship between the two minerals was 2 parts of calcium to 1 part magnesium. Many physicians know nothing of this and indiscriminately prescribe massive doses of calcium to their patients while ignoring the importance of magnesium. In her book on magnesium, she wrote, "Calcium and magnesium are 2 sides of a physiological coin. They have actions that oppose one another, yet they function as a team." She then goes on to say, "But calcium intakes that are unduly high relative to magnesium can intensify the problems caused by the low magnesium content of most modern diets." The relationship between calcium and magnesium is not unique. Pardon me. These kinds of relationships are everywhere in nature. There is a strong antagonism between zinc and copper. Carl Pfeiffer believed that an imbalanced intake of these nutrients contributed to stretch marks. And usually a lack of zinc is what contributes towards stretch marks. He wrote, "Both zinc and copper are needed for effective cross-linking of the elastin chains to make the perfect elastic tissue. When imperfect, any overstretching will cause long tears which appear as striae or stretch marks." Pfeiffer was particularly concerned about copper piping in homes and copper cooking utensils depressing zinc levels. He became quite fearful of copper. According to a physician close to the case, Pfeiffer had suffered a heart attack, which could have been contributed to by a deficiency of copper. And according to Dr. Jim McAfee, one of the causes, because somebody asked him a question about the increased number of people suffering from stretch marks these days, specifically younger people. And if you see overweight people, you will often see stretch marks around their tummy areas or around their bicep, tricep areas if they're moving around, because those areas are not toned. And part of the reason, according to his understanding, is that these sort of people tend to drink a lot of soda, which is high in calcium, which depletes the zinc, which in turn leads to the stretch marks. Another highly significant antagonism is that between iodine and other halides, such as fluoride, bromine, and chloride. David Brownstein writes, "All halides compete with one another for absorption and receptor binding in the body. Bromine interferes with iodine utilization in the thyroid, as well as wherever else iodine would concentrate in the body." He continues to say that iodine deficiency is a huge public health problem. The exposure to goitrogens, which is a substance that promotes goiter, including the halides, bromide, and fluoride, has exacerbated the iodine deficiency problem. It is one of the main underlying causes of many varied illnesses, including thyroid disorders, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, cancer, including cancer of the breast and prostate, and other health issues. High intake of fluoride, as promoted by many public health agencies, depresses tissue levels of iodine, leading to deficiencies. The antagonisms and synergisms of minerals are well enough understood that one will find circles or wheels of mineral interactions in various places. The substances in food can induce nutritional deficiency through various mechanisms as well. Overconsumption of certain foods can induce nutritional deficiencies even when nutrients are fairly abundant in the diet. So those guys who say you don't need to supplement because you can get everything you need from your diet, well, many people today, in their concern about cholesterol, avoid egg yolks, but consume egg whites. The protein avidin in egg white is a potent biotin antagonist. Administration of avidin to test subjects results in biotin abnormalities within 3 days and a drop in blood levels of the vitamin by the 10th day. Another common antagonism is that between members of the cabbage family and iodine. In Tasmania, children consuming milk obtained from cows fed on kale, which is a member of the cabbage family, developed goiter, while other children did not. Goiter is a classic iodine deficiency disease. A number of foods antagonize vitamin B6. Flaxseed meal contains a compound called linatin, which induces vitamin B6 deficiency in laboratory animals. This is one of the reasons one should use caution when trying to get too much flax seeds. Button mushrooms contain arginine, which is a suspected vitamin B antagonist. Alfalfa sprouts contain L-canelin, which interferes with vitamin B6. Man often adds nutritional antagonists to his foods as well. A wide range of food additives antagonize vitamin B6, including overheated vegetable oils, caramel color, and yellow number 5, and the sprouting inhibitor malic hydrazide used on onions and potatoes. Potato chips are loaded with vitamin B6 antagonists. Residues of a ripening agent, which is a B6 antagonist, are commonly found on peaches, nectarines, tomatoes, Brussels sprouts, cherries, grapes, and apples. Small wonder that deficiencies of B6 and other nutrients are common, even though the nutrients are found in many foods. That is the end of that. So that gives you a little bit of a summary as to why we need to have everything in balance. Nature loves balance. So if there's too much of one thing, you're going to have a problem somewhere else. And likewise, if there's too little of something, you're going to have a problem somewhere else. Which is why with Neolife, they always say, based in nature, because they use whole food complexes backed by science, because they use that entire complex and simply process it down in a manner that is easily used in a supplement form. So if anybody tells you, I'm going for a vitamin B shot, they're probably just getting vitamin B12. What about the other 7 vitamin Bs? They need to be careful. Right, does anybody have any questions or comments before I stop recording?